you. Okay. So let me introduce our roundtable of AAPI reporters, media leaders. Vandana Kumar, who is calling in from India, Emily Dofu with Radio Tonga, Sway Songgupan from Myanmar Gazette, based in Los Angeles, Diana Ding with Ding Ding TV, which is based in San Jose, Nicole Chang, who was very eager to join and may join soon with the Korea Daily in Los Angeles, Jongwon Lee, a Korea media expert and lawyer, Cora Oriel and Christina Oriel from Asian Journal in so many different parts of the state, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, as well as Las Vegas and New Jersey, New York. Julian Doe with Ethnic Media Services and Sunita Sarabji with Ethnic Media Services, and Nancy Tran with Radio TNT, and Toli Chang with Hmong TV in Fresno. Where we are going to start is with Nancy, because Nancy, you are on your way to the airport, are you not? Or are you already at the airport?
Oh, we're on our way.
Okay, well, we'll go first with you and then with Vandana, since we want to make sure we don't lose our connection to India. So the question is, how do you read your audience now, the communities you serve, and their views about the pandemic? And second, how are parents dealing with vaccines and the idea of vaccinating their kids? And third, are there examples of misinformation that you feel you have to combat? And or have you written stories recently about the pandemic that you can share with us? And all of that in 4 minutes, okay? Start with the first. How do you read your audience? Okay, just a sec, you're on mute, Nancy.
Okay. Yes, my read is this. Disinformation is rampant in the community, okay? Thank goodness that Vietnamese community, Vietnamese American communities, I think is among the highest vaccinated community, thanks to the fact that when we were in Vietnam, it's a tradition to be vaccinated against, various influenza. And so that tradition is good. The only problem is that the people who are politically inclined to believe in GOP, in a certain political inclination, as the GOP, for example, and they incline to listen to a certain radio or of course they listen to our radio, but I'm talking about American radios or channels such as Fox News, and also on the internet, and they're influenced heavily by the disinformation or fake news regarding vaccination. And some people, even in my family, and there are educated people, but because of their political inclination, they even believe that COVID is not existing. It's just a fake news, that COVID is a pandemic, and they don't vaccinate. But thank goodness that the majority of my family are vaccinated. And even among those people who don't believe in Democrats, or because of their political inclination, that they strongly believe in GOP, they say they don't believe in COVID or the vaccine, but they secretly vaccinate themselves. So that's one of the thing that is interesting right there. And there are people who believe in GOP, in a certain, and believe in Trump, but they also vaccinate. However, the ones that are deeply believe in Trump, Mr. Trump, they spread around misinformation, disinformation, and that's when people like us, the media, the truthful media, we come in and we have to do this from the beginning to the end to end any kind of disinformation, especially regarding the pandemic. If you have a question, yes.
Could you tell us what do you think parents' attitude is about vaccinating kids? Because so far there's a lower vaccination rate for 5 to 11-year-olds, and we don't know 0 to 5, but that's soon to be available. How do you think Vietnamese are dealing with that? And can you give us an example of a story you took on to counter disinformation?
Okay, the parents who don't believe in the vaccines themselves and don't take vaccine themselves, then they, of course, they wouldn't apply that to their kids, right? They wouldn't have their kid vaccinated. So that's a tragedy right there. And besides the fact that there's so many disinformation, the unbelievable one, like it has Satan DNA and it has the snake's genes or blood or whatever. They believe in weird things like that. And so on our talk show weekly and our daily news, if we find something to dissuade people from these myths or bad information, we try very hard from the beginning of the pandemic. And of course, we encourage parents to take these vaccines and vaccinate their children because they're safe, very safe. And we gave data from the CDC and all the reliable sources. And we pointed out all these bad myths and disinformation, and even the channels or the sources of information that are so bad.
Thank you. If anybody has a question, and including Irina, please signal with the hand icon because you may have questions. Very quick question for you, Nancy, is what is the most helpful resource you have in addressing disinformation? Is it access to Vietnamese language doctors, or what would help you the most do a better job countering disinformation?
Yes, so I myself, I translate information that is reliable and credible about vaccines, about vaccination rates, about how vaccines help to prevent diseases and hospitalization and deaths and all of that. So that's something that we have to do to have it available in Vietnamese. And I also share that information with other colleagues, you know.
Okay.
And I believe there are many people with the heart in our community try to do the same. So we do share information. Besides, we also interview doctors who are credible, and of course to our listeners. So that's what we do. And we also post these informations on the internet and trying to send it through emails. And we have discussion regarding this. And so those are the basic things that we're doing.
Could you, if you have a doctor or two doctors who've been on your show recently, whom you really think did a very good job, could you include their names in the chat box or just send an email? That would be tremendously helpful. Okay, in the interests of time, Nancy, that was great. I don't want you to miss your your plane, but thank you. Stay as long as you can.
No,
And
actually, I just returned.
oh,
So
you returned.
yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
completed my trip and
Okay,
make it on time. Thank you so
okay.
much for having me.
Terrific. Okay, now we'll go to Vandana. Tell us, it's 11:30 your time in India in the night, right? But thank you. Vandana, how would you say Asian Indians or South Asians in your audience are thinking about the pandemic at this point and about vaccinating their kids, and any examples of disinformation you want to share would be fantastic.
So, just like Nancy said, even for the Indian American community and larger South Asian community, people from India are used to getting vaccinated. There's TB and cholera and smallpox and typhoid and many serious diseases. And most recently, even things like bird flu, chikungunya and stuff. So we didn't see that vaccine hesitancy in the Indian American community. There wasn't that much pushback on getting vaccinated or wearing masks. It seemed to be like that would be something normal to do. That said, while it wasn't an issue for the elders, there has been some concern around vaccinating children, and largely because of the speed at which the vaccine was developed. And because they say we don't know what the long-term effects of this are going to be. And a lot of it is fueled by getting everything politicized nowadays. So that adds a level of complexity that we haven't seen, before. I haven't seen that before. And Sandy, you asked about what are the concerns around vaccines for kids. Certainly, the first thing that it was created too quickly and worrying about the potential side effects. There's a lot of misinformation circulating in WhatsApp. And anybody who's on WhatsApp, I guarantee you've seen this, promoting myths about infertility, about future infertility, or the fact that maybe fetal cells in vaccines can cause DNA changes. I can understand, when parents get concerned, it's after all their children. What is the best way to allay their concerns, their fears around that? Only those that believe in science can, or have faith in science, can say, okay, I'm going to take this leap of faith and give my kids this vaccine. So there's definitely been a lower instance of giving vaccinating, of giving vaccines to their children. I don't know what the numbers are, Sandy. I haven't looked at that,
Right.
but that's definitely a concern.
How will India Currents address that from a reporting standpoint?
So some of this is we are trying to get as much science around it to be visible to our readers, because what we have found is our readers in general, again, I say in general, do respond to science. Maybe we come from a generation, largely we are first generation immigrants, and a lot of that culture we carry with us, like, you believe in science, you believe what
Right.
doctors have to say. And I believe the messaging around that is what's going to be effective for our audience.
Great.
You also asked for what are the kinds of stories we have
Right.
done around the pandemic and vaccine. Honestly, we've literally done a story a week since the pandemic has started. But more recently, in the last 8 months, we've talked a lot about vaccinating kids, the resources that are available, the ease of use, and we've also tried to showcase this content using, like Indian American faces, children who are Indian American who have been vaccinated, to say that Shipra has been vaccinated, your daughter can too, and these are real people who agreed to be photographed and who agreed to be put on as a role model to be shown to the community.
That's great. That's great. One very quick add-on, Vandana, you gave an incredible example of disinformation recently from the Academy Awards. I wish you would, the kind of disinformation circulating on WhatsApp with Asian Indians from the Academy Awards and the incident of the slap.
Oh God, I'm trying to remember, what did I tell you?
Well, the slap was seen as set up by Pfizer.
Oh, by Pfizer. Oh, of course. I'm sure that anyone who's again following things on either social media, I'm sure this information has been seen by many people. The fact that this whole thing was a setup, and as the Academy Awards was sponsored by Pfizer, and Pfizer has a drug coming out on alopecia. What is the
Yes,
that his wife, alopecia,
right?
And and all of this was really a setup so that Pfizer could then come out with this drug on alopecia. And everything, the thing about misinformation is tying what's happening at the moment with other things that may be disconnected. What is the most searched term on Google? Alopecia. Oh, is Pfizer coming out with a drug on alopecia? And, even someone like me, I was researching. I went and I'm Googling this. Is Pfizer actually coming out with an alopecia drug? Are they actually working on this? Did they really sponsor this? I mean, it's such a waste of time, but
it's there. It's there.
It's there.
Great, thank you. Let's go next to Emily Tofu with Radio Tonga. And this is a remarkable source of news and community information, which Emily and her husband co-founded. Emily, thank you for joining us. How do you think the Pacific Islander and specifically Tonga community are perceiving the pandemic now, and how accepting are they of the idea of vaccinating their kids, and how are you communicating with them?
Thank you, Sandy. With us, the Pacific Islanders, and specifically the Tongans, what we see now that, back home, the people here always relate back home. Back home in the Pacific Island states, they just started to have COVID-19 around January. With us in Tonga, the COVID-19 just got there around February, I think, and it going crazy over there. Our population is 100,000, but there's like 10,000 people who have been infected and 11 people have been dead from COVID-19. So with us here overseas, we always relate to our country, and it's almost the same thing that happens. We try to share the experience of the Tongans and the Pacific Islanders in overseas so that our Tongans at home can actually see what's going on. But right now with our Pacific Islanders here in the United States, they're kind of relaxing somehow. There is more celebration going on, and there are more people getting COVID-19, and there's even people still die from COVID-19, especially the non-vaccinated one. So what we do with the radio is still keep on doing the same thing. I think the main challenge here, first of all, is the data in USA with the Tongan and the Pacific Islanders. We have a data of the number of people that are vaccinated and all those things for the Pacific Islanders only. So when we talk on the radio and when we talk on the media about that Pacific Islander data, it's kind of a challenge for them to relate it. It's, you know, almost the same thing happens in a little Tongan community or Samoan community or Fijian community, you know?
Right.
To, you know, so kind of the data sometimes is a challenge as well, because we hear from the radio trying to explain what's going on according to the data that provided by the state of California or provided by UCSF or something like that. But it's just for the Pacific Islander as a whole here in USA.
Right.
First, second is the language barrier. When we seek for doctors to or somebody from the Ministry of Health, from the health department to actually explain, we haven't really find a Tongan or Samoan doctor to do that. It's always, you know, it's always somebody that will speak English.
Right.
And they start the conversation, there goes the listeners out. Even though they understand the English, but it seems like I think they're more comfortable to do it in Tongan. So 2 or 3 times I invited a doctor MD from the island, from Tonga, to explain about COVID-19 here for the community here in US. Yeah, and one of the time I get a Dr. MD from Australia. So one of the problem is the language barrier. Also, I think the last thing that I want to add on is with the parents out here, with the Tongans and maybe the Pacific Islanders, 97, 98% of us are Christian. Misinformation comes from church leaders. And when 98% of our community are Christian, church leaders are the most significant leader here in our community. They listen to them more. So they come in with all this is toward the end of the world, and all this COVID-19 is not true, and you know, and that trickles down to the parents. If the parents have already vaccinated, but they heard this lately, they won't vaccinate their kids. And it's a problem back home. And at the same time, it also the same problem here in the United States.
That is fascinating. And that's really an important, everything you've said has been very helpful, Emily. In the interest of time, I will go to our next speaker. And
thank you.
Hopefully we'll have more questions, but this is also extremely helpful for our Mythbuster initiative. So I'm like a greedy editor listening to potential story ideas. Our next speaker will be Diana Ding with Ding Ding TV. And in many ways, Diana, you're in the center of a firestorm with what's happening in Shanghai, what's happening in Hong Kong, and with the Chinese diaspora here in California. How do you think the Chinese immigrant audience you serve is feeling about COVID and the events in China as well?
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you so much. And thank you, Yorena, everyone, for this roundtable. I think it's really important. I think the reason, for Chinese community, especially the people have been to United States for a long time, most of them, I would say 95% of them have been vaccinated, and they really, but we have many new immigrants. And talking about the reason why the parents are hesitating, this is what I heard about it. There were so many fake news on WeChat. WeChat is a social app that everybody's using. So many of the some of the information are not even created in United States. We don't know where this information come from. They said, okay, the vaccination to your kids is creating a future damage you don't see right now. If you get vaccinated, and when they grown up and they will have a brain damage, they will have body damage or something like that. But for Chinese parents, I would say this is culture for Asian parents. Mother are the caretakers and they are the decision makers for their children. And some of the mothers, they are the housewife and they got all their information from WeChat. So WeChat is really the place that created the fake news and wrong information. Their lack of the real expertise, give them the advice. Another thing is I like Emily mentioned is from the religion reason, the church. Some people will say that our body is created by God, so we cannot do anything like that. They may change our body or change our genes, so God is there protecting us, so we don't need the vaccination. This is something I heard about it too, which is it's really difficult to convince people. And if you're trying to convince people, it always ends up with an argument. So what we're thinking, what we're doing is, we have our WeChat public account, which already have over 10,000 subscribers. We also have our WeChat groups. We have over 30 WeChat groups. Altogether, we have like a WeChat, we can spread this influence to over 25,000 people. So we're trying to, create a contents and publish that on WeChat and distribute to the WeChat groups and give them the information. And also when I was listening to you guys and also especially, listening to Sandy and each one of you, we're thinking to organize a roundtable discussion with Bay Area Parents Association, talking about this, what the parents' concern, because it would be more helpful to listen to the parents and why they are hesitant. Yeah, so I would like to talk to Irina. Maybe you can just invite a doctor or expert in this field, but I will invite the Parents Association to join this discussion. That's what I'm thinking. Yes, that's the end of my talking. We also have 100,000 followers on social media, so we can spread out the information. Yes.
Diana, is this Cantonese or Mandarin?
Mandarin.
Mandarin. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, I can probably get you a doctor that can speak Mandarin from CDPH. Let's connect on that.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, we can do both Mandarin and English. In that we will generate more contents to send out.
That's a terrific idea. And there's so much more I'd like to ask you about how the lockdown in Shanghai is affecting perceptions about COVID and how to deal with COVID. But let's wait till the last 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A, more Q&A. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not myself. The Shanghai, the Shanghai, the news from Shanghai, because we really care, because we have relatives there. I think it's really heartbroken if you see the truth, the real things, what's happening there. It's heartbroken, but we feel like we don't want to talk about that in our community because there were so many spies, I would say.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Toli Chang at Hmong Television. Toli, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Very well.
Okay.
You're speaking from Fresno, so this is extremely valuable for us to hear a perspective from the Valley.
I think that the misinformation are pretty similar across most of our community. I think that a lot of our parents, they're pretty much, they take in the vaccination. Again, here in Fresno, we do have a high vaccination rate among parents and grandparents and the adults. But the issue still lingers around where when it comes to their kids or their children, they still kind of want to wait and see whether they themselves going to have any kind of side effect down the road before they determine that they will allow the kid to take the vaccine. So I think that in our community, it's just a more of a waiting period. They didn't want it to have their kids take the vaccine where they're not sure whether it's gonna have any long-term side effect or effect to their health. And I think that for us as a TV station, we always we filter out the misinformation. We only give out information that are accurate from the State Department. And on a daily basis, when we have different information that comes out, we do announce it during our news. So that's just some of the things that we've been doing. But going back to how the commuters are responding right now, again, they're just kind of like everyone are just are hesitant to vaccinate their kids for that purpose.
What do you think is the most effective messenger or kind of source for addressing that hesitancy? I think the idea of bringing parents on is challenging and can be very effective because parents listen to each other.
Right. I think if we can find a few parents in the community that are willing to come out and kind of speak on their experience. I know that some of the local CBOs, they keep in touch with family that were hit hard by the COVID, and those kind of family, when they got hit a lot harder, they tends to just vaccinate the whole family. So I think that if we can get some similar family like that decide to, what, because we experienced a tragedy within our family and we just want to get everyone vaccinated, whether they're a kid or high school kid or adult. I think that we can get to hear their story, why they decide to do what they do. That will help maybe encourage other family to do the same.
That's a excellent idea.
So just to make sure I understand, so we're talking about finding real people and putting them in media, right?
Right.
Yes.
I think that that's kind of like how the Hmong community, like if they see that other people are doing it, it should be okay as well too. But I don't know how that works with the whole thing about making sure we don't get ourselves in trouble by having those individuals speak about this topic on TV.
Years ago, when Common Core, that big education reform that was going to transform schools, we did community in-language community parent sessions, asking people to share their concerns and explain what Common Core was going to do. Those were enormously effective. And I think we shouldn't be afraid of people asking honest questions or sharing concerns. I think there's such a hunger for kind of authentic voices, sharing of experiences. Obviously, you don't want to get a virulent anti-vaxxer on the program.
Right.
You want people, just as you've said, who've been through tragedy and who've seen the importance of the vaccine. But we can discuss, this is idea generating and
right.
Very useful. Okay, we have three more reporters that I want to call on now. Next, we'll hear from Cora Orial and her colleague, Christine Orial from Asian Journal with a huge reach with Filipino audiences.
Hi, it's Christina. How is everyone doing? Thank you for inviting us. Nice to see you, Sandy. Thank you for inviting us to this roundtable again. I know we joined the one late last year where we talked about some of the trends in the community. And I think I shared back then that early on in the during the pandemic, when there weren't a lot of facts about the source or how to deal with if you got an infection or if you got infected, there was a lot of misinformation in our community and other Asian communities, like ways to treat it. But given that a lot of Filipino Americans are in the healthcare industry, what had helped our coverage early on was covering or interviewing the nurses and doctors who are on the front lines. And unfortunately, a lot of them, got COVID or passed away before the vaccine. So talking to their families about, like you said, the tragedy of COVID really had an impact on the community, and I think changed the perspective on the perceptions of COVID. And when the vaccine first came out, we made an effort to talk to the healthcare professionals as well as like Catholic faith leaders who were supportive of that vaccine. So there were a lot of roundtables that we were part of, sharing those. And like the previous speaker said, really the human everyday voices make an influential impact on the community. In terms of getting children vaccinated, I think pushing the school requirements has allowed forced some parents to get their kids vaccinated, but I think we could do more, especially with data on how many more kids or which communities, whether regionally or ethnically, need to be vaccinated.
So that's a very good question to raise. Urena, are there ethnic breakdowns for 5 to 11-year-old vaccine rates?
I was just looking for that actually. So Asian, they put everybody together. So in order to get like a specific breakdown of different Asian groups, I need to ask separately. So that's something that I need to take in internally and try to find out, because unfortunately they lumped everybody in one group.
Yeah. The disaggregated or the push for disaggregated data in the health and economic, I think a lot of our different Asian communities have been pushing for that for years, and I hope during the pandemic, it shows a need, especially as we could make an educated guess that there are some Asian communities that don't have the resources, the health resources as much as others.
Right.
But what we've looked at, given the lack of disaggregated data, is looking at like neighborhoods in Southern California or LA County, for example, that have low vaccine rates. So like a good example is like historic Filipino town. So that has put a priority for the LA County and the Filipino organizations in the neighborhood to have vaccine clinics.
Right.
So that, I think that would be
I just want to add that LA County actually been keeping track of the breakdown of Asian vaccinations, and they do have tracking of the kids vaccination rates, but only in LA County.
Let's follow up and find out what that is and share it, because with Emily's point about the Pacific Island failure to disaggregate, I can just see how challenging this can be. We have, thank you so much, Christina, and I'm going to go next to our 7th speaker, Sway Sangupan from Myanmar Gazette. And then Nicole, be patient. We're very much looking forward to your presentation from the Korea Daily. So first, Sway. the Burmese, and by extension, you could say a larger community of newly settled immigrants from Southeast Asia. Please.
Thank you, Sammy and Ms. Yurina. I would like to report our community vaccination rate for both the adult and then the kids between the so far 5 to 11 years of age. Our community adult vaccination rate is the very high vaccination rate so far because our adults see obviously the virus is not a joke and it's not like the flu and it can make the people die. And they obviously see last 2 years ago, but so many famous people in our community who denied vaccination, they really die. So adult vaccination rate so far is good. And 5 to 11 years vaccination rate is slowly increasing because the parents wanted to wait and see, monitor for the previously vaccination kids who are safe or not. So far, the vaccination rate began slowly increases for 5 to 11 years of age. And the reason of the hesitation of the kids vaccination for the parents is, number one, the parents are worried about the long-term side effect of the vaccine for the kids, especially they worry the vaccine, if the vaccine can retard the normal growth of the kids, and they can either they can change the DNA or some long-term effect. This is the first thing. And the second thing is many of the parents in our community underestimate the consequences of the virus on the kids. They think the virus can seriously attack to the adult, but for the kids, the kids, they think the kids will suffer just the mild symptoms and carrier. And because of most of our adults in our community has been fully vaccinated and boosted, they think the adults became safe, and then even if the kids became the carrier, so they underestimate the consequences of the virus on the kids. And then number three, regarding for the future vaccination between the 0 to 5 ages of the kids, even the educated parents, they are worried because of the tiny viscera of the little kids, especially and the 1 year of the kids, like the liver and the kidneys, they can tolerate the vaccine of the kids. This is just their guess and some hearsay evidence. The three first are. Number 4 is the misinformation. The misinformation of the vaccine are on the social media like the Telegram or the Facebook group are. The first thing is there are the 3 things of the misinformation in our community. The first thing is they confuse between the consequences of the virus and the side effect of the vaccine, like myocarditis. Many parents think the vaccine can cause myocarditis of the kids. Actually, myocarditis means the inflammation of the heart and then the heart diseases, actually, which is the side effect of the virus, but they are confused or the vaccine can cause the myocarditis of the kids. And the second thing is they are worried about the vaccine will change the DNA of the kids, and in the prolonged side effect, they are worried for the prolonged side effect. It can make the autoimmune diseases, and then another thing, the rumors is that it can change the puberty of the kids, like the kids after vaccinated will cause the early puberty or delayed puberty. And the third thing is number 3 is very important because so many people in our community, not only in the California, but in other states, they wrongly think the pandemic is almost over because they see the death rate of the virus is compared to the last 2 years ago. The death rate began slow down, and then the mask mandate is off in some places, and the people can gather indoor activities, gather in the club. So they think the pandemic is over and they don't care about the effect of the virus as last 2 years ago. And then they think the power of the virus became weaker and weaker. So they they don't think seriously about the vaccination for the kids. That is what our community think about the vaccine and the virus for the kids.
Wow. Well, that's a wonderful overview, Sui Sui.
Thank you,
One
Ms.
last-
Can I ask something? What's the vaccination rate among kids?
Our vaccination rate is not around about it. We have two communities, the vaccination site in El Monte and in the Rosemead. We speak Burmese, and most of the Burmese in LA County, they came to our community vaccination site. As much as I know, last 2 months ago, they said the vaccination rate is among our Los Angeles area is around about 40%, 40%. But not up to they are move forward to go to the 50% of the kids in our community.
So it's higher than average, it sounds
Yes.
like. But is there one story you've done that you think was very effective in addressing the concerns or the sense that it's over now, or the concerns, the disinformation? Is there one example of a story you recently did?
You mean that disinformation of the vaccine?
Yes.
Yes, disinformation, I am the main concern for the disinformation is I have to present for the two things, virus and then the vaccine. Because if the parents believe the virus, they will believe the vaccine. The first thing is the underestimate the consequences of the virus impact on the kids.
Yeah. Okay.
It is very serious. And the second is the vaccination is the rumors about the change in puberty of the kids and then the prolonged side effect of the vaccine. They are the two main things.
And you take those on in the Myanmar Gazette. That's
Sure.
very, very helpful, Sui Sui.
Sure,
Our last speaker is Nicole Chang from the Korea Daily. And Nicole, thank you for joining us, and we're excited to hear your perspective on Korean, the Korean audiences you serve.
Well, thank you so much, Sandy, for inviting me and the Korea Daily for this important Zoom meeting. And also, I really appreciate Mr. Lee Chong-won, who pushed me to join this meeting too. So I really appreciate it. Well, the Korean community is like same as any other Asian community. At the beginning of pandemic, Koreans were kind of worried of having vaccinated because of side effects or effectiveness. But that's the only way we can overcome this pandemic. So we try to send out many information as possible to the community, and the location where to serve, where to get the shot, or how effective, and how CDC is giving us the guideline. So I think all the others, and especially seniors, I think more than 89% or 90% are get vaccinated fully. The one thing is because others are so vaccinated, because of Korea require whoever comes to the Korea, they need to present the vaccination card that they got fully vaccinated and also booster shot later. So most adults and seniors, they got vaccinated, and a lot of seniors got second vaccine too. For the children, I think it's like all other Asian parents too. They are worried still, and then I don't think they're taking vaccine that much. I think my personal opinion, I think less than 30% are getting vaccine. But if children are over 14 years old, they are fully vaccinated. A lot of Korean parents are following the school or district's requirement or guideline. So if school or districts requires vaccination or the booster shot, they send their kids. But if they're not, usually they're not taking it because of effectiveness and side effect is not fully explained, or showing the proof that it is effective for the COVID-19. I think
Nicole, can I ask you something? Why do you think they're not vaccinating the younger kids, the 5 to 11?
I think it's less than 30 or 25%. According to, we only get the rate by city. I don't think county released the data for Korean Americans only, but according to the City of Los Angeles Controller Office, and they released the data of vaccination rate in zip code, and in July 2021 is about 66 or 70%. So we believe those adults and seniors are more than that, but children are less than the average of LA County or city, because Korean parents are very conservative. So we believe, the children's rate is lower than regular.
But do they think it's not safe? Is that why? Is that why they're choosing not to vaccinate their youngers?
Because it's not requirement. If a school or district, as I said, if a school or district requires children to get vaccinated, then Korean parents are, willing to send their kids to get vaccinated, because they want children to go to school, because going to school is more important than staying at home and study via Zoom or remote study. But if a school is not requiring, they don't really send their kids to the clinic. Rather, they ask children to wear masks. Wearing mask is more effective, they think.
That's fascinating. And Jongwon, I know you track Korean media. What last words do you want to provide about the reasons for parent hesitancy on vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds?
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to discuss about the parents' attitude. So, for instance, the Korean parents and grandparents get vaccinated not because they believe the vaccine is safe, but because they wanted to protect their family. So they sacrifice themselves to protect themselves. Korean people don't believe the vaccine is 100% safe. Maybe it might be 80% or 90% safe, but they sacrifice themselves. But children is different. They have future, and there is no 100% guarantee of the safety. And so, yeah, I can sacrifice myself, but how about my children? If there is any side effect and their future will be affected, so that's the reason I believe the Asian people get very hesitant to get their children vaccinated. So we need to make sure vaccine is probably not 90%, not 80%, not 90%. It's 98, 99% safe for children. So I emphasized that vaccine is safe. So it was proven through the long clinical trial and experiment, it is safe, but they want the number. Yeah, 95%, 90, 80% safe, then they will be, the children get vaccinated, I believe.
Yeah, I want to piggyback with Mr.
Yes.
Lee.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Koreans parents are conservative, as I said, but people who get vaccinated, they got COVID too. So parents rather children not to get vaccinated, but they wanted to protect their children from COVID, so they more likely to ask for wearing a mask and not to go out, or try to stay away with 6 more feet. I think those more social distancing they think is effective. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Urina, we are at the hour of 11 o'clock, but this has been a very rich discussion with the reporters on the call today. And there seem to me to be a number of ways we can follow up with some of the questions. The difficulty for convincing parents about the safety of the vaccine in the kids is that there aren't any long-term clinical trials you can point to that 5 years from now, they're not going to be sort of effects we couldn't see now. So it still requires a certain leap of faith, doesn't it?
Not really. So even though this particular vaccine is kind of newish, we have been using this type of vaccine for over 20 years.
Okay.
And there is no effect, long-term effect after having the vaccine. So that's a myth.
Okay. See that if even I could not have answered that question as effectively as you, that's a space we can address in our coverage. So that's very, very useful. Look,
so I dropped my email in the chat. If anybody wants to get a hold of me directly, that's my email. And I think, Sandy, maybe we can talk of the air, but maybe we want to do something about specific myths related to, surrounding AAPI communities.
Right.
As a press event, maybe that will help.
Right. And I also love the idea of calling on sort of peer-to-peer experiences among parents. I think there have been so many important insights how to deal with the lack of disaggregated data by going to zip code data. It's not as good, but it's probably the best we can do for now. But all of this really valuable information from all of you. Nancy, you had a last word. Your hand is up.
Wow, what an honor. Thank you so much. I just want to summarize a few important points. For immigrants, especially political refugees, like the Vietnamese Americans, the lack of trust is a big factor. Oh, and because of that, we need trusted people or celebrities or media personality to address the issues. And lack of communication, we address the language barrier, and also the tactfully depoliticization of COVID. And lastly, when we do that data analysis, sometimes cases of people who didn't take vaccine or their children didn't take vaccine, they die. And we can address that too, besides all the percentage point, and then we have to analyze. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. At the risk of taking more of your time, I will thank everyone and wish you a very good Wednesday. Thank you for joining us very much.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you.